Netflix Hostage ended with a short time jump, which suggested what would come next for Prime Minister Abigail Dalton, her husband, Dr. Alex Anderson, and their daughter, Sylvie. The political thriller begins with Dr. Alex Anderson's abduction in French Guiana. The culprits demanded that Abigail resign from her position as Prime Minister, or Alex and his captive colleagues would be killed. Abigail turned to the help of French President Vivienne Toussaint, who was in the UK to negotiate with the Prime Minister regarding Britain's health crisis. Vivienne initially agreed to launch a rescue mission in French Guiana. However, she called the whole thing off when Alex's captors sent her a text threatening to reveal the president's sex scandal with her stepson, Matteo. It quickly becomes clear that Alex's captors intend to pit the French president and English prime minister against one another. And, for a time, it worked. It wasn't until these two women chose the road of honesty that they managed to get Alex to safety. His captor was identified as Captain John Michael Shagan, who, without his hostages, turned to other means to hurt Abigail Dalton. Shagan managed to incite a political coup at Downing Street in Netflix's Hostage, and Abigail was usurped from her position as Prime Minister. Still, this isn't enough for Shagan. Though forcing Abigail out of her position was a first step, he wanted her dead. So, he detonated a bomb at Downing Street. It killed President Toussaint, but Abigail survived. So, Shagan once again held the Prime Minister's family hostage. While Abigail dealt with the real mastermind behind her husband's abduction and hostage, Shagan headed to the safe house where Alex, Sylvie, and Matteo were hiding out. When he realized that Abigail wasn't with them, Shagan once again held her family hostage, demanding that she come alone, or Alex and Sylvie would die. Sylvie managed to get a hold of a gun and entered the room where Abigail and Alex were tussling with Shagan. She held their captor at gunpoint, but Abigail begged her daughter not to shoot. Intriguingly, Shagan's mission shifted from murdering Abigail to pushing Sylvie to shoot him. He told the girl that he was responsible for her grandfather's death, and that did it. Sylvie shot and killed Shagan. This is the climactic high point of Hostage's ending. Abigail and her family were safe, but Shagan had still, in a significant way, gotten his revenge on the Prime Minister. We know this because of his conversation with Alex earlier in Hostage Episode 5, when he mentioned the toll that killing takes on a person. Sylvie would never be the same, and everyone knew it. Abigail's decisions in Hostage revolved around whether she would prioritize her job or her family. Though it seemed for a time that she could walk away with both intact, this wasn't ultimately the case. Sylvie paid the price, and though we see at the end of Hostage that she is okay, we know that there is a wound there that won't ever fully heal. Though Abigail could have stepped down as Prime Minister to save her husband at the very beginning of Hostage, she refused. This wasn't simply about maintaining power. Abigail understood that Shagan was manipulating democracy. The British people had voted Abigail in as Prime Minister. Had she stepped down, it would have demonstrated that anyone can override the will of the people. Though Shagan successfully turned the people, including Abigail's cabinet, against her, it didn't last long once this plot was revealed. Dan Ogilvy graciously stepped aside, allowing his rightfully elected predecessor to step back into her role. So, at the end of Hostage, Abigail is still the British Prime Minister. However, following Vivienne Toussaint's example, Abigail put her fate back in the hands of the people. The 3-month time jump at the end of Hostage saw Abigail share a loving moment with her family before she stepped out of Downing Street and announced that she was calling for a general election. After everything that had happened, the people would have a chance to vote again for their Prime Minister. It's a sign that, despite the cost to her family, Abigail had upheld the power of democracy. Once Shagan was identified, it didn't take long before Abigail figured out who the man was working for. Someone with more influence within the government had to be calling the shots, and General Livingston, who had been Shagan's commanding officer, made the most sense. When Abigail confronted the man, he unwittingly admitted his crimes by mentioning the exploding laptop, something he couldn't have known about otherwise. Abigail and her team realized that Livingston and Shagan's vendetta against her must have something to do with the 2018 incident in Belize. The men had been stationed there when the Guatemalan army invaded, and Abigail, the junior minister in the Foreign Office at the time, ordered the British troops to evacuate. This meant leaving behind civilians who had helped them. Before his death, Shagan revealed that his fiancée had been a local interpreter who had aided his team. She was 6 months pregnant with Shagan's daughter when the Guatemalans executed her on the tarmac. Hostage is a limited series, so it's meant to be a standalone story. The ending is satisfying, demonstrating the losses Abigail inevitably had to take to both her career and family life in her efforts as a public servant. Still, there is undoubtedly more worth exploring here if Netflix chose to shift Hostage's format. It would be interesting to see the outcome of the general election Abigail called for in Hostage's ending. Additionally, there would be value in seeing the impact of Sylvie's actions. It's not unheard of for Netflix to extend a story that was initially designed as a limited series. If Hostage continues to be a success on the streaming platform, we could certainly expect more to come.